Yeah, so the question is, why does hair suddenly stop feeling like itself, even when somebody isn't doing anything different? This is a super important concept, not only for we have to understand this, whether you are a stylist, very important if you're a stylist, or whether you're the customer or the consumer, the client, it doesn't matter. Both sides need to understand this because this is how the mechanics of it work. People think that their hair is just one thing, and that, like, you go get your hair done and it's meant to kind of stay that way or stay really close to that way for a long time, right? The fact of the matter is, hair stops behaving like itself and feeling like itself because we're changing. We're constantly changing. The biology of us as human beings is constantly changing as we move through space. Every second, every minute of the day, there's cellular changes going on at microsecond speeds inside of our bodies. And so the biology of our hair and the chemistry of our body is changing at a moment to moment to moment notice. Okay. And it's changing small, very incremental changes over time, very small ones. And so most people don't notice those changes until maybe 4 weeks, maybe 6 weeks, depending on 8 weeks, depending on the type of service and everything. But the point here is this: is that you could get your hair done perfectly, and everybody knows this. Get your hair done exactly as you want it, colored, cut, shaped, everything, and you could sit there and do nothing and it's just going to change. The hair and the body is naturally going to change. It's going to do its own thing, right? Your hair has this natural pattern that it follows regardless of whether your personality wants the hair to behave that way or not. And so it's important to understand that there's two things going on. You have the natural biological patterns of your hair, that are repeatable, and they're just going to do, this is in your genetics, right? It's just going to do what it's going to do to a certain degree. Everybody has their ranges of that. Everybody's hair patterns are different. So you have the hair pattern, in the body, and then you have the personality relationship to it. There's always two. This is a binary. So you always have these two things happening. So it's never just about the perfect hair or getting the right haircut or style or color. It's also about the relationship and the person, not only the stylist but the customer, understanding the pattern so that they know when alignment is happening and how to make that align. Because when the natural patterns and the personality are aligned, that's when everything feels right. It's misalignment that happens that causes people to feel frustrated and misidentified with their hair or want something bigger change and all those different kinds of things. So yeah, yeah, there's always two things going on. There's always two things going on, and it's about aligning those things. It's about finding the natural patterns in your regular hair and aligning that and accepting that, as somebody whose hair has natural patterns, whether it does whatever it's going to do, you as a person accepting the natural patterns of your hair and then the natural limitations of your hair, and then being able to transcend those limitations, um, um, within, you accepting that and understanding the pattern, and then your relationship with that changes, and then you can actually have a relationship with your hair that is more aligned and it feels better and it works better you know you know so why were people taught to believe hair should stay the same forever? I don't know. I don't know why people were taught that. I don't think people were taught that on purpose. These are just natural. There's so many things that show up in the industry, um, they just happen. They just happen. Nobody's intending for these things to happen. They're just natural consequences of people trying to solve problems, right? People are trying to solve their day-to-day problems, and new natural consequences arrive from those things. Some of them can be beneficial and valuable, and some of them can not be. And so that's just how it works. Um, you know, but the reality is this: whether you believe it or not, whether people believe this or not, your hair changes, and the sooner you can really understand the natural patterns that your hair goes through and your relationship to your hair, like what you want your hair to do for you, what you want it to be for you, how you want it to behave for you, right? When you start to align those things, then it just works easier. It just feels better. You feel more in your own skin, and you feel better with the type of hair and the type of relationship you have with your hair. What are the biggest things that actually change hair over time that people don't realize? Porosity. This is something that we've dug pretty deep into here. I'm somebody that just loves mechanics and patterns to see how things are operating, regardless of whether you believe them or not. Right? It's like your phone, your iPhone, the mechanics in your phone. Um, you don't have to believe that they work for them to work. And so I like to understand the mechanics. I want to understand how this hair is working, whether you believe it or not, right? And so that led me into this discovery of um, one of the biggest things is porosity, and porosity just has to do with the opening and the closing of the cuticle of the hair, and people don't realize the acidity of the water and the things that we are putting on our hair all the time, and people don't realize that temperature changes and pH changes in just the well water or the city water, or what, or the products that they're using in their hair without looking at pH. People don't realize that most of these products that they're putting in their hair are causing their hair cuticle to open and close much more, and it creates damage over time. And so that's one of those things that we look at quite a lot when we look at the biology and the pattern of the hair, is just looking at um, that porosity factor, and how people are, what products they're putting on there, and how they're using water and the type of water that they're using, in order to just understand how the hair is going to react. Because it's not always about, there are things you can do, there are treatments that we have, and there's things that we can do to regain the strength and kind of fix some of that porosity, closing the cuticle down. But it's not about fixing and changing your water and all that stuff. It's recognizing what your natural patterns are doing with your hair so that we can address them appropriately. Yeah. And to add with that, I guess a very simple way is that most people don't understand that just getting their hair wet without soap, hot water, um changes the porosity of your hair. Your hair cuticle is going to open up with warm water, and the water that you naturally use, whether it's well water or city water, and it's just that, regardless of soap, it's naturally going to open that. So just wetting your hair is, in showering on a daily basis, is going to open and close that cuticle. And depending, if your hair is straight or curly, or that changes a little bit. But just water, just plain water that you use every day, impacts your hair, and impacts the way the color holds in your hair. It impacts the way your hair stays in its pattern, how long it will stay in this pattern that you want it to. And so, yeah, just water without even products causes changes that people don't understand, and most of the time don't realize. They don't realize that water is actually affecting their hair, along with the products and other things. Um, so, what do you mean when you say there are two things happening with hair? That's a really good question. We have to understand. We have to understand something as people. There's a biological aspect to us. There's this part of us, this unconscious, people will call it unconscious. There's this automatic unconscious operating system happening within the human body. That's what I'm talking about. Your hair is growing, your hair is shedding, your hair is changing, your hair is adjusting to the natural environment and the things that are coming in contact with it: water, product, heat, sun, weather, all of those things. Your hair is naturally adjusting to those factors. And they're adjusting to those factors whether your mind is aware of it or not. That's what I'm talking about. We're talking about this pattern that your body is going through, and then we're talking about this other part that is your personality, and really how you identify with your hair. And so those are the two things. We have this pattern in your body that is going to operate the way it's going to operate no matter what, because that's just how the unconscious body, each person's genetics and their environment and that whole thing works. And then on top of that, we have the personality, and each person's unique personality and relationship to the hair. So there's always that, and that's what I'm talking about. And it's not just, that's why people, they make this mistake and think it's only about the hair, and we change the hair and it's going to fix the identification or the personality. It doesn't. It's an understanding of alignment, because people really start to feel good when their hair aligns with who they are and how they live their life. It's not just about having the best haircut or the color or all these things. It's about alignment to our natural flow of life, which makes us feel good in our own skin. And that is what we're all after in one way or the other. So we have to understand there's two happening. We live in a binary, a polarity. So if hair naturally changes, what are people actually supposed to do? Yeah. You have to understand yourself. You have to get to know yourself. You have to, this leads into a much bigger thing, right? You have to get to know your body. You have to get to know how your body responds to your environments. You have to get to know how your body naturally operates, what it's sensitive to. You have to get to know what's natural for your hair. Um, and once you know that, it's like you have to have this. You have to know what you need to know. You just have to know a baseline about this is how my hair and my scalp and my body is going to operate. Okay. Then once you have that, again, I'm going to loop this back to this thing again. Once you have that, once you understand generally how your hair pattern flows and how your hair is going to change, on a repeating basis, how fast it's going to grow, how fast grow out happens, how fast it goes flat, or all of those kinds of things, right? So you start to learn that, and then that is where the communication with the stylist comes in, and the person, when you're getting product, right? So the stylist then understands much more deeply how this hair is going to operate and how they can work with that hair. Then the communication happens with the client where this is how your hair is naturally going to work. These are the parameters. These are the guardrails we can work with your hair that's going to work best for you. Then we can start to align the hair that's going to work, the style and the color and the cut and everything that's going to work, and the products, the appropriate products that are going to work for that type of hair pattern. And then really what happens is then, they communicate to the stylist, and the stylists are communicating that to them, and then it's just this is what we're going to naturally do to make sure your hair is supported. It's just a natural step-by-step fit. That's why it's not a whole bunch of crazy you got to do this and this. No, it's just an understanding of your natural hair's rhythm. And then once you understand it, you can see the highs and the lows and when things are going to drift away and when things are not, and that's where you can strategically put certain services, certain products, certain treatments, and things to just keep your hair pattern and operating the way that you want it, right? And so that's what you got to do. The first thing you do is you have to understand that, and you have to communicate that, and you have to ask those questions to your stylist, and you have to know, what kind of hair pattern you're working with, and that's the very first step. Yeah, it's the very first step.